question again by you guys on the group about meconium aspiration and approach to meconium aspiration pneumonia. So we know that different causes of respiratory distress exist in the initial few days. In the soon after birth period, we have transient tachypnea of newborn in term babies, and there are many babies who have aspiration pneumonia due to various causes. Congenital pneumonia, where there is a setting for infection. Aspiration pneumonia happens at delivery either from blood, amniotic fluid, or meconium. And obviously, meconium we know for sure because the obstetrician tells us about meconium still in amniotic fluid. Blood aspiration can happen even in a normal vaginal delivery, but where there is APH, it's more likely because there is a setting for baby to aspirate. In amniotic fluid aspiration, it's not clear cut. So most of the amniotic fluid aspiration will overlap with transient tachypnea of newborn, except that the course may be a little more prolonged and you may see rise in inflammatory marker like you'd see with other aspiration. Meconium aspiration is peculiar because meconium has bile acids and other chemicals which can irritate the lung parenchyma, and also the bile acids have a effect on the pulmonary vasculature, which cause pulmonary vasoconstriction. So in addition to the respiratory distress and the hypoxia related to the respiratory distress, you also have the effect of these chemical pneumonitis. So there are two things coming from it. The risk of PPHN is very high with meconium aspiration. That's why we target a higher saturation for these babies, not above 98, but 95 to 98%. You give a little higher FaO2 than you would otherwise to aim for this saturation target. So because oxygen itself is a pulmonary vasodilator, and by giving more oxygen, you are trying to avoid the risk of PPHN worsening. As I've explained before in my talk on PPHN, persistent pulmonary hypertension is physiologic fetal state. So any baby in the first 3-4 days can flip into that if you don't manage the baby appropriately. So you may have hypothermia, hypoglycemia, acidosis, sepsis, over distension of the lung. Any of these may cause the baby to have the hypoxia or the stimulus for the vasoconstriction, and then they go into that cycle. So main thing is good nursing care right from the word go to avoid this happening. Same applies in meconium aspiration, and all the nursing staff become sensitized that if it's meconium aspiration, there is a risk of PPHN and the saturation target should be on the higher side, but you can instruct them at the admission as well. Avoid over treating in such settings as well, because we tend to go by the oxygenation. If the FaO2 starts going up, you start increasing the pressure. But if the lung is over distended, as it often is in these settings, it's not homogeneous because it different pathology in different parts of the lung. You get meconium aspiration with the closed down lung, which is almost like RDS. In this situation, if the FaO2 exceeds 50%, there is a room for surfactant therapy and timely surfactant management. Some of you may have seen the paper from Dr. Sushma Nangia and team on Ensure technique for meconium aspiration pneumonia, where the criteria is met. So you can use Ensure, and non-invasive ventilation is well established as even if there is PPHN in the early stages, you can use CPAP or NAPPV in these settings as well. So Dr. Sushma Nangia and her team had shown that Ensure technique works here also. So you can, if the baby is stable enough, you can give the surfactant and extubate. And the timing of surfactant, early is better than late, even in this setting. So the same article mentions that. In terms of meconium aspiration, surfactant lavage is another thing that was tried, but we don't use it. The larger volumes needed and the benefit may not be much different. But where you suspect that the oxygen requirement in meconium aspiration is due to PPHN and the lung is not closed down, you don't really rush to give surfactant because you can't predict the effect of that. Adequate ventilatory support and not overdoing ventilation, because when you keep increasing the pressure trying to chase the FaO2 when actually the problem is PPHN, you will end up causing hydrogenic PPHN, and we don't want that situation. So we want to titrate, give early pulmonary vasodilators. If you have nitric oxide, you can start that as a trial. If you don't have nitric oxide, you can use sildenafil in these settings, provided the blood pressure is maintained. Or you can add a inotrope in the inotrope as needed. Milrinone with sildenafil can be added as well if blood pressure is maintained. Remember that milrinone drops the blood pressure, and hypotension is quite damaging to the baby in different ways. So never rush to give milrinone where the blood pressure is not maintained. Combining with norepinephrine or vasoactive medication to keep the blood pressure up would help you as well. So two important points about meconium aspiration. If meconium aspiration behaves like RDS, gives surfactant when the FiO2 crosses 50%, you can use lung ultrasound to identify the pathology as well. You can do ensure even with meconium aspiration where this criteria is met. But where the lung is patchy and non-homogeneous with areas of over distension, you do an echo before you consider surfactant if the oxygen requirement is high. Because if it is PPHN and you give surfactant, you cannot predict the response in these babies and you may end up with over distension and causing problems related to that. So any questions on this aspect of it? So non-invasive ventilation is good enough in majority of the babies if the respiratory effort is good. Because these are mostly term babies, CO2 can go slightly on the higher side, but you don't want very high CO2s, which might mean that the baby needs intubation and ventilation. Gentle handling, the other steps you would take to reduce PPHN, like keeping the FiO2 on the higher side, keep saturation target of 95 to 98, making sure the blood pressure is maintained. You can feed these babies if they are stable enough, tube feeding every 2 hours and gradually increase the same. That's a pattern that Dr. Tejal suggested. Start with 2 ml 2 hourly, increase 1 ml every feed if tolerated even in these babies. And feeding is a good way to keep these babies calm. Make sure the feeding tube is in the stomach and there is no risk of aspiration. So again, any questions on this topic? So does anyone use non-invasive ventilation comfortably in meconium aspiration? Anyone has hesitations? So you're all familiar with the labor room management of meconium as well. That has changed for 2 guidelines now. So everyone is comfortable with not intubating routinely.
Yeah.
Only if baby needs it as part of MR SOAP as well. Yeah.
So what I think, sir, everything has become a little gentle as far as the meconium is concerned. So it was very aggressive initially. So now everything is gentle. Gentle suction and even the ventilation is little gentle than.
Yes, we are not worried. We are not rushing to paralyze or
not rushing actually. So
that's a right approach.
Right approach now, because what we used to do, it's different now.
And I mean, it makes sense also because majority of the babies with meconium stained liquor are actually post-mature babies. They are not asphyxiated babies. There is only a small proportion of babies who are coming through a difficult situation. They are the combination of meconium aspiration with birth asphyxia. And this is the exact group who is at risk of PPHN as well. So the focus should be on oxygenation of these babies rather than sucking out the meconium. And if your oxygenation is not effective, then you do the intubation and suction as needed. So
no vigorous suction. Yeah, I like this approach. It really works.
Yes. Any other comments or questions?
Hello, sir. So, is there any criteria for surfactant and MSF, sir?
As I said, I mean, if your X-ray is a closed pattern and the FiO2 is approaching 50% on optimal non-invasive ventilation, you can go for Ensure. If you have already intubated the baby for any reason, same cutoff can be used. But in those babies who are already intubated, you can wait to extubate till the course is clear. So the same criteria, around 50% FiO2 with the closed lung pattern on the X-ray.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's higher than what you would do in a premature baby because you don't want to overdo. And optimal CPAP is important. If you're using NIPPV or CPAP, use a pressure of close to 6, CPAP of 6 or a NIPPV pressure of 18 or 20 over 6.